If you have the Blackmagic Cinema Camera app on your phone, go ahead and take it out. We're gonna kind of go through this stuff together. If you don't have it and you have an iPhone 11 or newer, then I encourage you to download it. It is free and it's absolutely incredible for what it is. So I strongly encourage you to download it. Even if it's just you making videos around your house, like family videos or stuff that you post to social media, knowing how to manually control the camera is going to make you better at doing this. The very first thing that we are going to look at, and by the way, I am recording this, so if you are on this camera, you are in the video. This video is going to be used for teaching purposes, so it will be posted to YouTube at some point even. So there you go. As they say in the movie Young Guns, I'll make you famous. You remember that? That's such an awesome movie. Anyway, very first thing, if you have not used this app, go ahead and do this. It won't matter. If you have used the app, go ahead and do it. That way we're all on the same page. Down on the bottom right where it says settings and you've got the gear, if you click onto that and then scroll all the way to the bottom on the left side, click reset. We're going to get everybody to the same starting point when it comes to using this. So click reset and then click onto that, which is reset the cam settings. Now stop at this point. If you have already used this app and you have video that you have recorded that you want to keep that is in the Blackmagic camera app, you're just going to hit reset camera settings. If you are okay deleting the stuff from the app that you've already recorded, then you're going to hit reset all settings and erase all content. So I'm going to click on the bottom one and I'm going to click reset, and now I am back to what we'll call factory settings. When you download the app, this is the way that you're going to get the app. So I'm going to go all the way back to record at the top, and we're going to kind of talk through some of these things at this point. Now, I'm using an iPhone 11. This is not an iPhone 11 Pro. This is just an iPhone 11. So you might have more options than what I have on the screen here, and that's okay. If you're like, oh wow, I wonder what this does, click it. See what it does. Some of these things I'll talk through with you because I have the iPhone 15 Pro, and so I know that there are some differences in places. But we'll start here under record by going to the codec. Codec stands for compression, decompression. It is the algorithm or whatever math term that Apple uses to take video that is this big, shrink it down to this size so you can send it to somebody or whatever you do with it, and then unshrink it so that they can actually watch it. They are compressing it, decompressing it. That is a codec. That is what that stands for. If you click into that, you probably have more options than this phone. I only have two, H.264 and H.265. We're going to use H.265, and the reason is because we're going to actually record in 4K, because 4K gives us more options in editing, and H.265 does a really good job of keeping a high quality image in a very small file size. So we're going to do H.265. So it probably defaulted to that. Some of you probably have other options there. If you have an iPhone 13 or newer, you probably have Apple ProRes. How many of you have Apple ProRes? Apple ProRes is awesome. If you plan on using this app to shoot video for people where you can make money, and that is entirely feasible with this tool, right? If you have that option, I would probably use Apple ProRes 422 because it is the highest of the qualities there that you can use. The problem is, like one minute of that is probably going to be 4 or 5 gigabytes, right? That is a lot of memory that is being used. So that's why we're doing H.265. It is going to be compressed a lot more, but we're going to lose a lot of the data in that process. So if you don't want to lose the data, if you're getting paid for it, then use ProRes. But in all other situations, H.265 seems to work. The next thing down is going to be resolution. We've got 4K, HD, and 720. 720 is technically HD, right? 1080p, which they have listed as HD, is actually full HD. And then you've got 4K beyond that. We have, what, 12K now? But that's nowhere near an iPhone, so I'm not worried about that. All right, and then the next thing is going to be color space. You probably have a lot more than this. Does anybody have the 15? Okay, so in yours, they have Apple Log. So Apple Log is a color space that allows you to capture a very bland, boring looking image, which doesn't seem great until you realize that that will actually allow you to edit the color of that so much more. It's like if you have a cake and you want to make somebody a cake for their birthday. You can make them a cake, right, where you bake the cake and then you decorate it and you put food coloring and all icing and all that kind of stuff and make something really cool. And you can do that, like that's log, is just baking the cake. If you go to the store and buy a cake, it's already done. What can you do at that point? Not much, right? That's Rec 709. Rec 709 is the color is baked into the cake and you can't do anything about it. Apple Log, which is only available on the iPhone 15, allows you to have complete control of the color, which allows you, unlimited creative freedom when it comes to that.
What is Rec 2020?
Rec 2020 is actually their HDR, like their high dynamic range stuff. I would not use that because if you shoot on that, when you put it into Premiere, you're going to have issues. How many of y'all have shot on an iPhone and then put your video into Premiere and it looks like overexposed, like blown out? If you've used an iPhone, it has happened to you at some point, probably. That is because your stuff is probably recording in Rec 2020 HDR. And not that that's bad, you just have to know how to work with it. And I haven't figured out the workflow for that yet. So what I would do is make sure you're in Rec 709. The next thing is going to be time code display. Y'all, I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but the ones I'm going through, I feel are the things that you definitely need to know. So time code display is going to determine how your time code shows up on your video. If it is record run, that is what you are used to. When you hit record on a camera, the number starts counting up, right? Like you're used to seeing the number start, like it turns red and the number just starts climbing. That's record run. The other option here is time of day, and that is going to take the time it is on your phone, and it is going to put that as the time code in your video. Most of the time, record run is great. Most of the time, that's going to be good. But let's say you were to take 3 iPhone 11s to the square to record the Christmas episode of Good Morning Marietta. If you set all of them to time of day, you have a matching time code across 3 different devices. So when you put that into Premiere, you can sync it up based off of that time code. So that is a really cool feature that this offers you. So if you've got 2 people in your group that have a very similar phone, then y'all could go in and set the time of day, and you could record 2 angles in your scene and then easily synchronize those in editing based off of the time code. Again, most of the time, record run is great. So I'm going to leave it on record run, but you now know that you have an option there. That's all I'm going to look at under this one. Next one I'm going to do is go down to camera. If you want to use this for vertical video, if you're trying to do social media, anything, then maybe you want to enable your vertical video. you can control all of the camera settings, but you just are shooting vertical at that point. I don't need that, so I'm gonna leave mine turned off on this, but if you want to have the control of a professional camera, even in your social media posting, then enable vertical video is good there. What I am going to do is when it says lock current orientation, I turn that on. And the reason is if you're using this camera and you turn this camera upside down, this camera looks like it's upside down, right? With regular cameras, if you turn it upside down, there's not like a gyroscope in there. So it is actually going to rotate that image. With your cell phone, if you don't turn on lock orientation, when you flip your camera over, what happens? The whole image flips, right? So that it tries to always keep it upright. So I do that because I want to creatively control what my image is doing. So let's say I'm like, I want to do this really cool shot where my camera is like spinning around as I'm moving it closer to David to show how disoriented he is or whatever. If I don't lock the current orientation, when I flip my camera over, David is still right side up. So lock current orientation is going to allow you to control the image completely, even if you rotate your phone. All right, next down. The one that we want to look at is going to be shutter measurement. You can go through, again, all of the other things, go through, look at them however you want to. Shutter measurement, if you click that, there are two options. There's shutter speed and shutter angle. Shutter speed is what most video cameras record using, right? It is measured in a fraction, 1/48, 1/100, whatever it is, it's a fraction. And it deals with the amount of time that the shutter is open, allowing light to hit the image processor in the camera. That's great, okay? But film uses shutter angle. So I am going to switch mine to shutter angle because I want to show you what that looks like. It is going to be more cinematic, and there's still things that I'm trying to learn with it, but I think it's a pretty good option. So again, shutter measurement is now set to shutter angle. Come down to audio. This is the part where I can't show you something that I wish I could. I am going to click where it says audio source. Right now, I only have one audio source, and that is the microphone on the camera, okay, like on my iPhone. If I were to plug in one of these wireless microphones using the cables that come with this, that goes lightning connector and everything into that, another option would pop up there. It would say headset microphone. If you click on headset microphone, you are then getting the sound from the external microphone, which is going to be better sound, right? Because right now, if I step back here, I'm talking into the camera, but there's distance there, so the audio is not going to be as clean and clear as it is when I'm up close. If I have the microphone, it doesn't matter where I go, the sound is going to be consistent, and that's what you want when you're doing this. So you want to have that external microphone. The way you do that is you go to settings, click audio, audio source, and then choose headset microphone. The rest of those options, I'm going to leave alone. I'm going to skip monitor. You can go in there and look at that if you want to. I'm going to click on media. And right here where it says save clips to, it currently says in-app only. What's happening there is when I hit record, it is saving all of those files inside of Blackmagic. It is not putting them into my photo library. To put them into photo library, I'm going to hit in-app and photo library. Now it is going to save the originals in Blackmagic app. There's going to be a copy of those in the photo library. Now I can just plug my phone into the computer, use image capture, pull those things out of the photo library. The reason this is good is because, let's just say, let's go back. Say you're using your phone to actually make money doing video for people. If you do that, you don't want things to not be there. You want redundancy. You want some sort of backup in place. So if you are doing in-app and photo library, if there's a problem in the transfer, from the photo library to the computer, you want to be able to go back into the Blackmagic app and get the clips that you need. So having it in both places is great. The only person that this would apply to is where it says files is Aiden, right? Because he has the iPhone 15, it has USB-C. You can plug up a USB-C external hard drive to this device and send things directly to that hard drive, which means if you are recording in ProRes and you've got these huge files and you've got a terabyte hard drive that you're recording them to, all you have to do is unplug them, plug them directly into your computer and start editing immediately. So it's a really awesome feature of the new phone. By going to USB-C, they make things a lot better. But in this case, we're just going to do in-app and photo library. And then coming down, I believe that's it. On the front page here, like now let's go up and click into camera. And here we are. All right. So we're on camera. Let's talk about all of the things at the top, okay? So starting in the top left where it says lens. Again, I'm using an iPhone 11, so this isn't really the best example of this, but if I click that, you can see my options opened up over here on the right next to the record button. I have the 26 millimeter, which is the main camera on this particular iPhone, and I have the 0.5 here, 13 millimeter. I wouldn't use this unless you have a creative reason to use this. It distorts, y'all know that 0.5 distorts stuff, and there's reasons why you might want to use that, but for the most part, I don't know that I would use that. Most of the time, I would probably be on this. If you have a Pro model of the phone, they have the telephoto lens, which is going to allow you even another angle there. And then you always have the front-facing, I guess, camera. So there we are. Those are the three cameras. One thing I do want to point out, all of them have the iris. You see the iris up there, f1.8. Okay, so that is the iris for this. It is grayed out. You cannot change it. The iris for the wide one, the 0.5, is f2.4. I can't change it. And then for the rear-facing camera, it's 2.2. So we can't change the iris on these cameras. That's fine. I mean, it would be great if we could, but that's just not the way these things work. But let's go across, all right? We've got our lens. You pick the lens that you want to use. The next thing is going to be FPS, which stands for what?
Frames per second.
Frames per second. What is film? FPS.
1080, no, not 1080.
What? 24. Film is 24. It's like 23.98, which is actually an option on this, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to do 24 FPS. Frames per second. Daggum, the computer shut down. Hopefully it's still recording. And we'll just mess everything up as much as possible. All right. So 24 FPS, that means we are recording 24 still pictures for every second of video. But we have options. So if we click on that and it's blue over here, over on the right next to the record, you can see that we can go all the way up to 60 and all the way down to 23.98. Right? I do want you to notice something. Right now, I'm at 24. Notice how it gets a little bit darker when I go up to 60. See, it gets a little bit darker. So how many of y'all have ever recorded slow-mo on your phone? When you use slow-mo, your image gets a lot darker when you use slow-mo. It's because it's taking more images per second, so none of them get as much light as these images do. So that's why the higher the frame rate, the more light you need. So like those super slow-mo, like 100,000 frames per second, where you see like the bullet go through water or whatever, those you have to have a ton of light to be able to see those images. We're going to leave our FPS at 24, and you don't actually have to change anything. I keep putting my hand there so there's a little bit of contrast, but you don't have to lock anything once you set your FPS. If I click off of it, it's going to stay set to 24 FPS. Coming over again to the right, before iris, after FPS, we've got shutter. Remember, we've got shutter speed, shutter angle. Ours is set to shutter angle, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a 360-degree shutter angle. Y'all, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand shutter angle. That is a completely foreign concept to me. I just learned about it about a year ago, and I'm trying to figure out how to best use it. But if I click on it over here next to the record button, you will see that I can adjust my shutter angle. From everything I have read and watched, 180 degrees is what you set your shutter to be able to get a natural motion blur in your shots. So I have gone over here, I have set this to 180. Now I want to focus my camera, so I'm just going to tap right there. What just happened to my shutter? It went up to 288. I just set it to 180. All right, right now the camera is auto adjusting, and it actually looks horrible, so it's not doing a very good job. So what I want to do, again, I'm going to click on shutter, and I'm going to say I want my shutter at 180. And now up at the top of that, I'm going to lock the shutter. So now there's a lock on. Everybody see the lock? It's above where the shutter is there. So now that is locked. So when I tap over here now, doesn't matter where I tap, it is not going to adjust the lighting at all. All right? It will only adjust the focus. But now I need to adjust the lighting. So let's come across. We've got our iris. Again, we can't change the iris. If we could make the iris like an f5.6, this would probably look pretty good. Or like an f7.8 or whatever. I don't even know. Like there's another math equation to figure out shutter angles and, iris and aperture and all this kind of stuff. I don't know it. I don't have to. I know that I can't change it. So I am going to go over here to where it says ISO. The ISO is the digital enhancement of the light. I am now going to adjust that to where I want it to be. All right, it's at 111. That's pretty good. It looks like it may be a little too bright over here in this corner, but that's outside. I can live with it. I'm fine. Now I have locked my shutter, and my ISO is now in manual control. So when I tap, wherever I tap, all right, it will adjust the focus to that area, but it is not adjusting the light in the image anymore because I have turned on manual control over the light. Now, the sun is apparently going behind clouds and coming out now, so it's kind of causing an issue over there. But I can keep adjusting my image. That is as low as the ISO will go on this particular camera, 32. Doesn't look bad on y'all. It's a little dark, so I might add light to y'all, which I would like to do because the background is still kind of blown out, but I'm not going to deal with that right now. I'm going to come up a little bit. There we go. So there's our ISO. The next one to the right of ISO, what is WB? White balance. What does white balance do? It controls what? It's not necessarily the amount of white. It is the color of the white, which is based off of the color temperature of the light. Right now you can see that it's at 3400 K. K stands for Kelvin. It's like right now the temperature is 52 degrees F, right? Fahrenheit. So that is the temperature outside, but light has its own color temperature, which is measured in Kelvin. The light in this room is, right now it's saying 3300 or 3330 Kelvin, all right? Earlier, I think it was at like 3100. You can see it adjusting because it's on auto and it just got brighter in here. So the light kind of adjusted a little bit. Just the color temperature of the light. It's not adjusting the brightness. The brightness is overexposed right now because it's what we set it for earlier. What I'm going to do with the white balance here is I'm going to get it to auto white balance on something white. Generally, I'm not going to do this right now, but I would have a piece of paper. I would let it white balance on that piece of paper. And then I'm going to lock my white balance by clicking lock. So now it's not going to change. I'm going to go back into that. I do want to look at the other options though. If I click auto and now click lock, so 3240, that's the color temperature in here right now. I'm good with that. But there are other preset options here. So if you're looking at this from top to bottom, you got the lock up there. The next one you have is the sun. If we were outside, that would be the color temperature. What's the color temperature of the sun? It's on the screen. 5,600 Kelvin. What do y'all think the color temperature of the little light bulb is going to be? That is a fluorescent light bulb. A fluorescent light bulb is going to be at like 3,200 Kelvin, which is closer to what the actual temperature is in here right now. The one below that is fluorescent. Did I say fluorescent for this one? Why did I just forget what it's called? Anyway, incandescent, thank you. The next one is fluorescent, and you can see that's close to 4,000. And then you've got the one below that on the right is shade, and the one below that is clouds. So what do y'all want to guess? All right, so let's go back. The sun is 5,600 K. Clouds, who thinks that is going to be lower than 5,600 K? Who thinks that the color temperature for that will be lower? All right, who thinks it'll be higher? All right, so if you click on that, it's about 6,500 K.
Clouds like really white.
Yeah, clouds are bouncing the sunlight around, and it changes the color temperature of it. So, yeah, absolutely. There we go. Safety. So anyway, those are the presets. Your best bet is probably just to hit auto, let it get the white balance, and then lock it. That way it's not changing while you are recording. So there we go. I'm going to tap back over here. So now I have my focus on something. Y'all notice everything on my screen just went away?
Yeah, how you do that? Okay.
Yeah, so that is exactly the way this camera works too. I made everything on the screen disappear one day, and I could not for the life of me figure out how to get it back on there. I was swiping like to the left and to the right, nothing happens. If all of your stuff disappears, just swipe down or up, either one. And it goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back. All right, so there you go. Those are the main controls there. The next one is audio. Remember, we talked about audio. If you had an external microphone connected, then you could actually go in, and you see right here where it says audio gain right there. If there were an external microphone, you could actually adjust the gain. It starts off at 100. You probably need to drag it down to at least 80, I would say, like 80%. And it really depends on the person who's talking, because I'm almost always in the red. If your sound is going to the red, it is overmodulated and sounds bad. Okay? So if your sound is touching red, you got a problem. If it's in the middle to lower yellow, you're probably okay. If it's in upper green, you're gold. Like, that's where you want to be. If it's negative 30 or below, you probably need to adjust it and bring it up a little bit. So I would say somewhere in negative 20 to negative 10 is ideal when it comes to this, because then you can adjust it when you put it into Premiere or DaVinci or whatever you use to edit. But to get to that, you just tap the screen. You tap where the audio meter is, and it will pop that up so that you could go in and adjust that. Y'all, exactly the same thing on the cinema camera itself. Just tap it, pops up on the screen, adjust it. You have all of the same controls on this camera that you do on the Blackmagic camera app. So, the one other thing that I want to talk about, there's a lot of other things in here that we could look at. We're not going to right now. Like it has like zebra pattern and some things like that, which I'm still a little iffy on. But it has a thing so you can turn on the rule of thirds. So if you're like, oh, I need help like framing my shots, you can actually turn on the grid inside of here. That will help you out. This one will tell you, you see how it's got the little square or the little cross in the middle? If you like are, all right, where is it at? I don't know how well it works on this one, but when that turns blue, it may not work that well on the 11. On my phone, it works really well, and it will allow you to see how level your shot is. Actually, I may be looking at the wrong thing. I think that could be, no. I think it is that one. It's just not the same on here as it is on mine. But you've got those different options there of things that you can look at. And then you've got this one right here, the one right below the record button. That is stabilization. These have built-in stabilization. It defaults to standard. You can turn it off. If you are on a tripod, you don't need stabilization. If you're on a gimbal, you don't need stabilization. In fact, if you're using a gimbal and you have stabilization on, those things are fighting against each other, and it's going to make your image worse. But you can go in standard, cinematic, or extreme stabilization. And if you're using extreme stabilization, you get a nice, smooth image when you record. Which again, let's go back. You could put this in vertical, and you could shoot vertical video for social media. And if you've got the stabilization on there, it's going to look really, really good. So there are a lot of options there that you can do. If you're really concerned about your metadata in terms of organizing your clips for editing, down at the bottom down here under the magnifying glass, you could go in and you could change the name of the slates, the lens data you can't really change, but you could tell it which reel, scene, take, interior, exterior, whatever information you want here. You can put all of that into that so that you have it when you go to edit. Yeah?
Why is the extreme not the default stability?
Because you really, stabilization is kind of, I guess we'll just say it's a crutch. Ideally, you're not going to use a built-in stabilization because in a phone, the stabilization is not an optical stabilization. It's a digital, which means it's just faking it, which means it's taking the image and like moving the image around so that it doesn't look like the image is moving around. Does that make sense? Whereas like an optical stabilization is going to actually be legitimately smoother video. So you don't want to use it unless you need to. Like if you don't have the resources to shoot it like on a gimbal or whatever, then those work great for that. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Is there a way to change like the depth of field to make it unfocused on the main subject and everything without?
So depth of field is a product of the iris. And these irises are set to 1.8, which is actually good for what you're wanting to do, which allows you to have that shallow depth of field to creative control. It's just not as good with this as it would be with like a really nice lens. So it's a little more work to make that happen on this. You actually have to move the camera closer to the subject. Right here where I just went into the button under the very top option over here. If I turn that off, I actually am controlling the focus. So if I were to, let's see, it's kind of hard to do here. But you see my hand's kind of not really in focus at all. There we go. All right. and you should be able to shift that somewhat. Again, this is an 11, so it would be kind of a miracle to make it do what you're wanting it to do. But you just have to like dive into it and kind of play around with it. But there is manual focus, which is going to get you what you're talking about. Anything else? Yeah.
And the gain, if I click on the gain, how can I adjust that?
So you can't if it is only the built-in microphone.
Gotcha.
So it's got to be an external microphone to be able to control the gain. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
When you're shooting, you said you can do like the thing where like you have two camera angles and like you time it up based on like the time of day.
Yeah.
Can you do that with like a microphone instead of another camera?
The short answer is yes. Do we have the resources to do that? No. So what I would do is have somebody else turn on their phone and use that other phone as the microphone, and then you could sync it up that way. It would work that way. But you really wouldn't have to, as long as you're recording on this and recording on a microphone or an audio recorder or another phone. What I would do is clap, and then when you go in to edit, you're going to see that like sound wave, like jump, and you can synchronize it. And Premiere will auto synchronize that if you tell it to. So it works out really well that way. All right, anybody else? Good questions.